that the rules as adopted by the National Assembly, which applies to committees also of the National Assembly on virtual platforms, that we are reminded at all times, honorable members and all other participants, to keep our mics muted, the video camera switched off until you are recognized by the chairperson, in which case you'll then proceed to unmute your mic, switch on your video camera, proceed to speak. In situations where you may be experiencing network challenges, give the indication to the chairperson for permission to proceed without the video camera on, so as to maximize your bandwidth. We also understand from time to time there may be those that would lose connectivity. Please ensure at all times as you reconnect to the platform that your video camera is off, your mic is muted, as mics are sensitive and therefore could pick up background sounds that may disrupt a speaker that may be on the platform, making it difficult for members to follow the proceedings. Points of orders are also allowed in terms of the rules. You are then expected to raise your hand, the gadget. The committee support will also assist the chairperson to identify the hand in case the chair is unable to, so as to recognize the member. So you do not unmute your mic until you are recognized by the chairperson, and therefore proceed to raise the point of order, in which case the chairperson would then rule upon that point of order in terms of the rules. Let's ensure then that we also keep in mind the guidance and plea that we do not raise unnecessary point of orders to a point of collapsing a meeting on this platform. That having been said, honorable members, I would now proceed to check with the committee support for all those applications for leave of absence or apologies that have been received by the office for purposes of record.
Morning, Chairperson. Chairperson, we have an apology for the Minister, and on the side of the committee members, we have an apology for Ms. Mthembu. Thank you, Chair.
We have an apology from the Minister and Ms. Mthembu from the committee, who also placed that on the portfolio committee platform. I'll take it that leave granted in that score. May I check if there may be those that have not been raised with the committee support, but would members would want to place those on record? Let's start with members. Is that the Honorable Bodlani? You are recognized.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Chairperson, early departure if we are not done by 11, please.
Thank you, Honorable Bodlani. We would note that once we hit 11, the Honorable Kubeka. The Honorable Kubeka, unmute and proceed.
Morning, Chair. My apologies to take time. Also on my side, Chair, my plane will depart at 11:20. So I'll be there till 11:20.
Thank you, Honorable Kubeka.
Thank you, Chair.
Let me then recognize Rampedi. So I'm not sure if it's Miss or Mr. Rampedi. I see a hand there. Okay, the Honorable Deputy Minister, I see your hand now. Okay.
Thanks, Chairperson. I would also like to apologize for myself and the acting CEO, MDDA. We are having an event here at KZN, a handover event to one radio station. So after presenting, we are going to request Chair to release us so that we continue with the program.
Is that we're back to Rampedi?
Oh, good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Sorry, I wanted to render apology for dear Motau. I can see she's now connected. She was struggling to join.
Okay, thank you. With those apologies, honorable members, that have been received, I would want to guide that so that the engagement is not hamstrung by absence. I would want to suggest that for us to save the time, but still have quality engagement, that as you flight the agenda, Ajra, I would want to then suggest that we just alter the presentations and start with the MDDA instead of taking the GCIS briefing. We then engage that presentation. Of course, if there are gaps that arise after the department would have presented, as it plays also oversight on the entity, they should be able to take up those questions that may have not been adequately answered. So I want to suggest that we take that approach so that by the time some of the members would leave, would have dealt with the discussion on the first one, as well probably on the second one. So that's how I would want to guide the meeting. It's not necessarily changing the agenda, just the order of the items in that score. Do I take it that you are comfortable with that also from the department side?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, with that having been said, we have allocated the time on the basis that members have had an opportunity to go through the presentations, but we're giving an opportunity to both the entity and the department to highlight those salient points that they may want to put before the committee as a matter of emphasis, given that the members have processed the information that has been sent to them. So that's one point on guidance. But the second is that, as we usually do, would be asking the political leadership to speak first. Of course, the Deputy Minister would expect that you would not be more than 10 minutes. Just brief overview and probably any other matter of public interest in relation to the area of work that the representatives of the people, being the parliamentarians, need to know and be able to also communicate in a seamless way on such matters, but also for South Africans to be taken into confidence on those matters, if there are any. But it's an opportunity to really give a brief political overview, which is very important, I think, from our side, to stress the point that whilst APPs may be developed and there's administration involved, would also want to see the political commitment of the political leadership to take matters forward. Hence, would really appreciate if this the political leadership present coming before the committee as part of also helping us to execute our work of holding the executive accountable. So in that score, without further waste of time, I will then hand over to you, Deputy Minister, for the brief overview. And thereafter we'll take, as I said, MDDA. That's when I start counting the 20 minutes when they present, and immediately after that, we'll take questions or comments from members who would want to engage the presentation at the time. Deputy Minister, Tau, you're welcome. The platform is yours. You can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, everyone. Members of Portfolio Committee. Chair, can I request to close my video so that I have a network coverage properly, because we are having a challenge with the network here.
No, permission granted. We saw you, dear.
All right. Thank you, Chairperson, members of Portfolio Committee, Acting Director General of GCIS, Acting CEO, MDDA, Chairperson of the Board, MDDA, ladies and gentlemen, GCIS bears the responsibility for providing strategic communication leadership in government, as well as coordinate communication practice in government and for an empowered domestic citizens. Chairperson, providing citizens with adequate information on priorities, programs, and activities contributes to government legitimacy. To be a legitimate player in public sphere, the South African government is looking to GCIS to develop and maintain effective communication capacity, which is done through National Communication Strategic Framework approved by Cabinet. Effective communication means hosting regular media briefings, profiling life-changing stories about what our people are doing to improve their livelihood. And these stories appears in our bi-monthly national newspaper called Vukuzenzele. Vukuzenzele is the only paper that publishes in all provinces. The free flow of information provided by GCIS to society allow our people to take stock of citizens' needs and preferences, and to foster a more deliberative space for multi-stakeholder participation and informed policy debate. Members, government communication is a key strategic service to ensure that information is widely accessible within the public space, to engage citizens in conversation around critical issues, and to empower citizens to participate in not only shaping government policies, but also in taking up opportunities that affect their lives. As per the APP before you, we are tabling all the different activities for 2023-2024 financial year, knowing that GCIS is a custodian of government communications, and it has to deliver on its mandate despite the inadequate budget in terms of the vacant position of the DG. The ministry is working hard to fill in the position. On MDDA, members post-1994, the media environment went through fundamental change. There was an agreement that there will be a three-tier system of private, public, and community media to ensure development and diversity. The MDDA has been able to carry out different aspects of its mandate to a greater degree through its grant funding, the agency is channeled resources to the community and small commercial media sector. And in this way, has contributed towards the expansion of ownership and control, as well as access of media to historical disadvantaged communities. Today marks 20 years after the MDDA was established. There is an evidence in the work done with mushrooming of both community and small commercial media, with radio audiences managing to reach an impressive 25% of South African audience, and printing media being read by millions monthly readers. The media project supported by MDDA is also being published and broadcast in all indigenous languages, reflecting the diversity country demographics, and training and capacity building interventions have been rolled out to support projects that have experienced gaps. As much as they have been progress, there are limitations too. Community projects sustainability is negatively impacted in a number of ways. In addition, MDDA has not been able to resolve the impasses with government or the commercial sector to secure advertising support for projects to enable sustainability. We have instructed the MDDA to stabilize the institution and fill funded vacant positions, as well as provide us with a proposal of media sustainability. With those few words, Chairperson, with your permission, I will hand over to Acting CEO, MDDA, to present our APP. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, DM. I thought there was the chair on board. So if MDDA as led by chair.
Chairperson of the committee, Honorable Maneli, the Deputy Minister Mtaung, honorable members of the committee, Acting DG Michael Karim. Chair, I'm joined by the MDDA Acting CEO, and I need to point out here, Chair, that for the past year, we have had a scenario where we have been acting on a 3-month basis. We have subsequently then approached the department, the ministry and GCIS and asked for a secondment of a period of 6 months. And this is where Ms. Nomkosi Peter comes in. She has been seconded to MDDA for a period of 6 months, which expires in September 2023. In that period, we will have been able to appoint a CEO. We have already fulfilled the mandatory 14 days internal advert. We are going on the 8th of May to advertise externally. We will then take both the external and internal candidate and put them through a process from which we will appoint a CEO. Also, Chairperson, we are joined by the new CFO, who it is her 2nd month in MDDA today, and she will be able to take us through part of the presentation. Her name is Titswalo Baji. It is important, Chairperson, because we have already submitted the presentation, just to highlight a few things before the acting CEO can make a presentation, which is that we do have 3 board vacancies, one of which is a shareholder representative. The minister has assured us and is busy with dealing with the necessary issues to ensure that we do have that. The others are being dealt with by your committee, and we are happy that we are being supported in that regard. 2 new vacancies are going to arise in September when 2 members' terms do expire, and I do know that the committee will embark on the necessary process to fill those. I must indicate, Chairperson, that we did meet with the minister, and we have gotten our marching orders. We have taken her on board in respect of whatever activities are going on in MDDA. At this point, Chairperson, let me ask the acting CEO to give us the presentation. Then we'll take questions after that.
Thank you, Board Chair. Acting CEO, proceed.
Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Chairperson of the MDDA Board, the Acting Director General of GCIS, members of the Portfolio Committee, and colleagues from the GCIS, ladies and gentlemen. The MDDA derives its mandate from the South African Constitution, specifically sections 15.1, section 16, and section 32.
Is the problem on my side? I seem not to hear. No, are the slides moved?
Or apologies, Chairperson, we had a technical glitch. The MDDA Act, Chair, provides for a series of requirements that the MDDA needs to fulfill. And these have been in existence since the adoption of the Act in 2002. With 2023 marking the 20th year of our existence, we are engaged in a process with our parent department, the GCIS, that will look into a full institutional review of the organization, and the outcomes of that review should then inform the process that the GCIS has initiated around the MDDA Amendment Bill. Considering that 2023-24 marks the fourth year of the current strategic plan cycle, the organization has not introduced any dramatic changes into the focus areas for the remaining 2 years of the strategic plan, and has intended to focus on 1, celebrating its 20 years of existence, and 2, implementing the recommendations that have come out of the sustainability research that was initiated in the financial year 22-23. Overall, the MDDA is operating in a landscape that has increasingly become digitized, and this has affected the sustainability as well as the mode of operation of the recipients of our funding. That said, we have 14 indicators which have been captured in our APP, and these 14 indicators, Chairperson, would be implemented in support of the 4 outcomes that reflect in our strategic plan. The 14 outcomes cut across our 5 programs within the MDDA, these being governance and administration, grant and seed funding, research, program management and monitoring and evaluation, as well as projects. I will then hand over to the CFO to take us through the budget.
Thanks, Elisa. Good morning, everyone. The MDDA has a budget of 300 million over the medium term. Of this, 57% is from broadcast funding, 37% is from the allocation from the fiscal, and 6% is from interest income that is derived from the investments that the agency has with the Reserve Bank.
Ms. Pachi, it may be only on my side. I see nothing on the screen. So nothing shared. Like I'm saying, it may be on my side, but I really don't see anything. More importantly, for those that are following the deliberations of the committee.
Okay, no, I didn't realize that the presentation
and Chair, the voice is also going down.
Okay, I'll try to raise my voice. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Better?
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll start again. The agency has a budget of 300 million over the medium term. Of this, 57% is from the broadcast funders, 37% is from the allocation from the sisters, and 6% is from the interest income that the agency derives from investment of funds with the Reserve Bank. For the 2023-2024 financial year, the agency has a budget of 103 million. Of this, 55% is derived from the broadcast funders, 40% is from the allocation from the fiscals, and 5% is from income, interest income. 48% and 41% of these funds will be expanded on grant expenditure and employee costs respectively over the medium term. And the remainder, that is 11%, will be for admin costs and CAPEX. This is over the medium term. For the 2023-2024 financial year, 61% and 38% of the budget will be expanded on grant expenditure and employee costs respectively, with the remainder, that is 11%, on admin costs and CAPEX. That's for the 2023-2024 financial year. Thank you very much.
In conclusion, Chairperson, the MDDA is very excited to align itself with the upcoming celebrations of the 30 years of democracy in 2024, and the agency will endeavor to do so by promoting social cohesion, the promotion of human rights, access to information, and job creation in line with the mandate as outlined in the MDDA Act. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, we will go back to you and we will take any other comments and questions that may follow, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members, would now take those members who would want to engage the presentation, having processed the entire presentation that has been received. So I'll now recognize those that would want to engage the presentation. Honorable Bodlan, I see your hand. Let me start with you. The committee support will assist me if there's any other hand. But at this point, I will allow you to proceed. Please.
Thanks,
proceed.
Chairperson. If you allow me to keep my video off, I have load shedding. Chairperson, I think let me first register my dissatisfaction that as a PC, as a portfolio committee, we never got to have the private meeting with MDDA, which they had requested, which we had agreed to. And I do appreciate that there was an issue with our logistics when we were on oversight. But what came out, Honorable Chairperson, is that as there was intention for us to go and meet with the MDDA, employees at the MDDA were sent a message to say they should not engage the portfolio committee because the minister is going to be dealing with issues that the minister is aware of. And those internal issues would then be dealt with. They should not entertain anything with the committee. I think that's one question I really would like to get clarity on, and to say, for me, that speaks to the challenges of organizational culture where employees are restricted on speaking on issues that affect them. And as we would know, it is the employees that make sure that the mandate of the entity is met. So from what I saw on that message, it is my feeling that something is wrong. Somebody is trying to hide something. So it would be interesting for me to really get an answer on that. And going into my questions, Chairperson, I do appreciate the report of the MDDA, which does speak to the fact that the legislation as well as the act that established MDDA has not kept up with the developments of digitization and digitalization. And I think that is just something that cuts across the board in terms of the sector needing to really move with the times, so that at least there's also response in terms of how people are accessing their news. The report does say that SANEF reports indicate that more people are accessing their news online. And that also speaks to Zenzele when we get to the GCIS. But I think considering that MDDA also funds local newspapers, it would be interesting to also see how they are trying to, how they are responding to the change in how people are digesting their news. We went on oversight and we saw stations like Motewa FM and Tiamani who rely on advertising for revenue to cover staff costs. And the MDDA report speaks about lack of reliability audience measure as an impediment. So my question to the entity is, what can be done? Because you have men and women, especially young men and young women, who are dedicating their time as volunteers and just rely on that stipend to at least get to the radio station for them to broadcast and just make a living and create, get some experience. So what can be done differently to get reliable audience measurements? The biggest issue that came from the two meetings, Honorable Chairperson, it's the issue of the payment of grants and the use of intermediaries. Is the MDDA able to expand on that, on how the payment processes are made and why they use for intermediaries, and how the radio stations can be assisted to make sure that whatever funds are available, they are sent to them directly? Because it is our understanding from when we met the Motewa FM, that if they get a grant of 10 rand, 40% of that 10 rands goes to the intermediary, which really defeats the purpose, and it's just creating a room for great corruption, where the money is not really benefiting the intended recipients. And community media is now faced with the cost of digital migration on their running costs, which will significantly increase based on Centec tariffs. This is a line I'm reading from the report. So on that also, how is digital migration affecting MDDA, and how is it affecting the radio stations? And maybe while I am on Centec, what is the value for MDDA, the radio stations that MDDA find, for them to, I'm trying to find the word, to not rely on Centec, but to broadcast from their self, use their own signals. I will remember the word now, Chairperson. But what is the value? Because it is my understanding that the grant payments are not really able to fully help the stations to cover their obligations in terms of Centec and others that keep them legally operating. And the MDDA reports that their funding criteria were vague, and the media projects were not required to demonstrate how they would become self-sufficient by the end of the funding period. Again, it speaks to their ability for audience measurements, so that they then know who they are reaching, so that when they go to speak to advertisers, they are able to then say to advertisers, this is our reach, and this is how we are able to, the way the signal distribution things. So this is our audience reach, and this is how much your funding or your advertising would mean for you in terms of audience reach. So it would be, I would really appreciate that. And Chairperson, I think for MDDA and Centec, this is one other thing that the committee needs a roundtable on, because I don't think there is really an understanding of how many radio stations have been switched off by Centec, and for the reasons thereof, just so that you don't give with one hand and take with the other hand and end up with community radio stations closing, especially because of the mandate that they carry to bring information to the locals in the language that they understand. There needs to be a closer okay. So I'm going to read this to say ICASA issuing licenses and the MDDA funding community broadcasting. There needs to be a closer collaboration between the agencies to ensure that media development and diversity targets are set and reached. Strong partnership with government department will also help unlock advertising support to the government communities. Just to say, Chairperson, I do agree with the sentence as it is in the report. I will stop at that point, Chairperson. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Bolan. Any other member? If not, we'll then proceed to get responses.
Chair.
Yes, Honorable Mlala.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand. I don't know what's the problem with my gadget. Yeah, Chair, thanks. And maybe let me also welcome the presentation. Mine is not a long one. I think there's just two issues that I want MDDA to consider in terms of the budget they presented. I'm a bit worried that in terms of the work that we have done over the 2 weeks doing oversight, there's quite a lot of hunger for community voices out there before this coming elections. We need definitely to hear more of what the people say. And I don't see, in terms of the budget I've seen, how they are going to expedite that process of ensuring that we have more voices on the ground. Perhaps if MDDA could extrapolate on their plans in relation to that, because we are more interested in knowing what the people really say. That's my first issue that I wanted to raise. The second one, it's around the issue that has been raised by my colleague, but I want to put it differently in terms of how many radio stations in the country that they funded that have collapsed, and what are possible reasons, maybe say consistent reasons relating to that, so that we have an idea, and how many are successful, and what could be the reasons others are successful, just as an oversight. I know their role is just to fund the establishment, but they don't necessarily are responsible for maintaining the long-term existence of those radio stations. But always it's important when you're funded an institution, know why it's succeeding and why it's not succeeding. What are the big issues, so that at least as a committee have an idea of where perhaps we can intervene. Those are my two questions, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Mlala. I would now go back to the board and the team.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me start by appreciating the questions from members, and let me go straight to the issue that Honorable Bodlani has raised. Honorable Bodlani, the board in its entirety met with the minister with almost half the staff members. In this meeting, which was a very fruitful meeting in our view, and the minister was trying to familiarize herself with the issues around the institution, as she had just rejoined the presidency. There was, in my view, and in a view of the board, there was no instruction, because that instruction would have been tantamount to a stifling people from having to engage with a very important body like the portfolio committee. It may be that whoever sent the message, because this message was not sent by the board, may have understood what the minister was saying. What the minister said was, I know that you are engaging in this week with the portfolio committee. The portfolio committee is doing its work. However, I would want to be given an opportunity to immerse myself on the issues, deal with the issues from a perspective of the executive responsible, and the minister was joined by the two deputy ministers in that regard. But there was no, in my recollection of that meeting, there was no instruction to say staff mustn't speak to the portfolio committee. And I want to assume, because I have not seen the message itself, and I do know for a fact that it did not come from my desk as the board chair, that it could be that statement from the minister could have been misconstrued to mean that the staff couldn't engage with the portfolio committee, which would not have been true. We were, as the board, we were ready on the day, and staff had been arranged to meet with the board, and we understand very clearly that the committee's logistics got complicated, and the committee could therefore not meet with us. And we still hope that one day, when the program of the committee allows, we'll have an opportunity to engage with the committee. On the issue around a signal distribution, and here I hear Honorable Bodlani alluding to the issue around on a signal distribution, something that a VETS, a radio station, does currently. It's quite a costly exercise, and it's something that we will want to be able to explore as we go on. But however, this is dependent largely on the legislative framework within which we operate. So there are many things that we have ideas about, but we are constrained by legislation. And we're hoping that with the review of the Act, some of these things are going to be attended to quite speedily. Things like commercialization. So the Act wouldn't allow us to do that. And however much we may wish that the stations must be commercial in nature and all sort of other things, but it will not necessarily be from a side of the MDDA to be able to do that. What we are doing currently, Honorable Bodlani, with in terms of a rethink, but still operating within the confines of the Act, is to see whether we should continue launching stations within close proximity to each other, or we should be having a conversation with the licensing authority to say, maybe let us redefine what the geography is about, so that one station is able to broadcast from much more larger communities, to the extent that you are able to cover a broader area, but also to allow us to then launch more, which will be able to cover the country as well as much as we will want to be able to do. I think the same issue deals really with this issue that Honorable Mlala is raising around Santec. We currently know that there's about 90 million rand that the community radio stations owe on Santec signal distribution. And that money, it's not something that MDDA can be able to absorb quite easily, because we do not have the budget to do so. However, I know for a fact that our minister and the Minister of Communication, DCTT, are engaged in communication at their level. MDDA and Santec are communicating to ensure that whilst Santec can do what their mandate allows them to do, but they are sensitive to the fact that when you close a community radio station, it's not really about the radio station. It's about a community that has been derived a voice, an ability to get a messaging from government, and government from getting issues that are coming out of those communities. So this is very important for us, and we are busy dealing with that issue. And I think that my sense is that there is a common understanding that community radio stations, community media, in a year leading to election, are very important media that we must be able to sustain. And I think that Centec does understand that. Around the issue of budget, I will leave that to GCIS because we just get the allocation. And I think that the acting DG is well aware that the budget it's insufficient for the work that we're supposed to be able to do. But he then has to operate within the constraints that he has. We go out and ask for funding from broadcasters, and as much as the Act allows us to be able to do outside that. And some of our broadcasters have done well to give us more money than what is actually expected or legislated for them to do. So from that perspective, we're very grateful. I think Honorable Mlala and Honorable Bodlani, that should be able to answer. On average, how many stations Centec is closing? On average, it's about 2 a month. The number could be more depending on at what stage the station is. But as I say, we are engaging, and I think that there's a acute awareness and understanding that these are very important media that must be protected. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson.
It seems it's me now who has lost the meeting.
We can hear you, Chair.
You can hear me now. Okay. I just wanted to check first before I move forward those that if Honorable Bodlani and Honorable Mlala have got follow-ups to make. I say Honorable Bodlani. Honorable Mlala, because you said you're struggling with your gadget to put up.
I'm okay, Chair. I'm fine
Okay.
with the response.
Okay. Honorable Bodlani, can then proceed.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I think to assist the board chairperson, on the very day that we were supposed to go to MDDA, a message was sent from Enokolo Bangaza. And the message says, "Dear colleagues, kindly note that management has received strict instructions from the minister to refrain from raising any real perceived challenges at the PCC oversight visit tomorrow." The same message was relayed to the staff representative a few months ago. The minister has committed to resolve MDDA issues in due time without any interference from external parties. As a result, the staff will no longer be represented at the meeting tomorrow. We hope that there will be another platform to raise challenges in the near future. Chairperson, I do appreciate the board chairperson saying he has no idea what this is about, and it could just be a miscommunication. Through you, Chairperson, can we just request a report to find out what happened? How many members of staff received that? And maybe when we understand the reason for that, we will understand what the minister is trying to hide, where the minister will say people must not speak to the portfolio committee, and they will deal, and we are perceived as being external, which in my view just is very wrong. It defeats the purpose of having Parliament as an oversight body who represents the people that have elected us. Just as a follow-up, Chairperson, I think I want to reiterate my point about the impasse, and this is me being dramatic, between Centec, MDDA, and ICASA. Because if we are to be frank, if you have an estimated 2 community radio stations closing per month, and I understand that is an estimation by the board chairperson, it means the MDDA will become absolute, because it would mean that community radio stations are not sustainable. So what would be the point of having a company like the MDDA? So and more than anything, it is the mandate that the MDDA carries. So it would be great, chairperson, to do more to help sustain community radio stations, to help sustain community print medias. And just as a way, chairperson, I do appreciate all the efforts that the MDDA board and the executives are doing in terms of fundraising. And there's a great appreciation that it is a massive responsibility to keep community radio stations afloat, and it is not efforts that we take for granted. Thanks, chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Bodlani. There may be any other hand so that we will wrap up on the MDDA part. Chair, you are free to respond or elect not. Mostly it has been comments. Over to you.
Thanks, Chairperson. Honorable Bodlani, we will indeed look at the matter. As I indicated, that I was in the meeting. The entire board was in the meeting. I did not get an impression that the minister was giving an instruction to staff. In any event, the minister will not have that responsibility, Honorable Bodlani, because the act is very clear. That will be tantamount to political interference. And the act is very clear that she can't do that. In this regard, the message will have had to be relayed by the board to the executive to say, this is what you must say to the staff. And I can absolutely, with no doubt at all, say to this committee that I did not relay that, and I had not asked anybody to represent me in relaying that to the executive to say that the staff can engage with the committee. So I think that we must be very clear, at least to that extent, that I was in the meeting to the extent that the minister said she would want an opportunity to understand the issues in the organization and then be able to deal with that. But in that, it was never our understanding that there was a direct instruction that people must not engage with the committee. We were ready. We were in the boardroom. We were assured that the staff are there and will be able to meet with the committee. But I make an undertaking that we'll investigate the issue and we'll report back to the committee. But suffice to say that I want to be very firm in saying that any other thing to suggest that the minister would have overreached in giving such an instruction would have been incorrect, because that message should then have come to the board. And if any executive, if this message came from the executive, to have issued that message, they should have checked with the board first to say, can we issue such a message which will indicate that the minister has said the following, and what is the stance of the board on the matter? And we will have been very clear that the committee can be impeded in any way from interacting with whatever stakeholder and the staff in particular, because that is your role, that's your oversight, that's what you must do, and that's how best you can be able to guide us in the instance. So yes, Chairperson, we will investigate the matter and we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Board Chair. Honorable members, I think we have now looked at the matters with regard to MDDA. I see Honorable Machozi raising the hand now. I take it that she's now back to the meeting. Honorable Machozi.
Thank you, Chairperson. No, my apologies, Chairperson. I had just joined the meeting, so I had to grasp what was what you were talking about. But I am not mainly on that, but on our oversight. Firstly, let me greet the honorable members in the meeting and the MDDA board. What I wanted to raise, Chairperson, is what we had promised, or maybe what we said we'd intervene on when we went on an oversight when in Kimberley, when we went to that community radio station in terms of the space that they were looking at and stuff. So now that we are talking about MDDA, I was thinking that maybe if MDDA, there is something that they can do as well to intervene in terms of finding them a proper venue, and also reminding us, Chairperson, that we said we'll speak with Public Works in terms of maybe finding them a space that they could function on, because that is what they cried about. Maybe if the MDDA allows them to do that, to also bring it in this meeting. That is all, Chairperson. There's no other issues that I have. Thanks.
No, thank you, Honorable Machos. I'm sure the MDDA has noted that part, and it may be something they may want to look at, as it is a specific matter with the registration in Kimberley, flowing out of the oversight. I'm sure, Board Chair, you'd agree that it's a specific matter. It may need the attention separately, and maybe communicate to the committee if there's anything that's get done on the matter. I would want us to really wrap up on this matter of the MDDA, so that we take a presentation from GCIS. But in doing so, I want to remind the honorable members that indeed we had agreed that the content advisors would work looking at the program of Parliament, especially the week where we may not have the line whips and the committee participating, that we are able to make an application around that time to still have that engagement with the MDDA, including those matters that they would have said were quite sensitive to be looked at. So that's the understanding I have. I think the other point to really make, so that chairs, you look at the matter, you are able to understand the context. As the committee at the time, we did not discuss this message. I think the honorable member raises the message as it would have been sent to her, and it's quite specific message. All I can confirm is that before we went that side, we started at GCIS. We've had engagements with the Deputy Minister, and the understanding was that they were still engaged on matters on that side. And we're to do that as we also get to the SABC. And therefore, given all that, we would have agreed to still proceed to the SABC, but still create time to come back to yourselves and have that engagement. So as you are looking forward to that engagement, you are equally looking forward to such, and I'm sure our content advisors would do as advised by the committee at the time, that we look at every available opportunity to still go back and engage the matters. However, at the time of moving around, we could not escape the fact that we are dealing with the total portfolio. So as we look at GCIS, we also look at community radio stations that are serviced by the MDDA in that scope. And I think the point made by Honorable Bodlani around a discussion which includes Centec. It's what the committee has also raised in the previous meeting, that we would need this discussion with Centec online and try to find solutions. We do appreciate from your feedback that at a political level, both ministers are engaging the matter. But we really do need to find a solution, especially because at a local level, this is the community media is the easily accessible platform to communicate with people on the ground, as many of the areas, especially the rural areas, may not have the same opportunity of media coverage that those are in the urban centers where headquarters of most of the media houses will be found. Now, with the elections coming, of course, introduction of independent candidates and all that, those platforms will play an important role in ensuring fairness in terms of coverage of messages and so on. So it's important that it is prioritized, this resolution part. At a rate of 2 stations that get closed per day, I think we should be worried that we may have states, in terms of statistics, that we have issued so many grants out, but in real terms, the impact would not be felt as they get closed in the process. And I think that then brings the point you've raised of other options you're looking at, that indeed this thing about proximity of the stations as opposed to ensuring a sustainable availability of community radio station in a district at least. It's important to look at that so that you balance presence and, of course, the flourishing of many of those stations. And surely others you may want to consider from a commercial point of view, that if they're able to stand on their own and so on, probably there'll be reasons to proceed doing that. But if it is about everyone else trying to have, because there are grants involved, I think it's a pretty dangerous way of looking at it, because you'll have many of them closed down, equipment not accounted for. In some instances, during the oversight, we did pick up where there would be fights amongst the same people who have opened up. Others are trying to privatize it. It become a family matter. Then equipment and everything, it's gone. You have a new application that gets made by another group that has come together, same space. So we just have to, I think, deal with those. I think for vacancies, we've been clear even in the other entities of the portfolio that if we want to create stability, we need to move faster on those so that those that take accountability will not be on Hollywood as actors, but they can be tied up to everything that is said to have been approved and agreed upon as targets that we have agreed upon. So I'm just saying we would really encourage you to do that. I think once we have info on the board question, it helps us now that we know upfront that the 2 will be vacant in September, and to avoid what we had, the other board of another entity, SABC, will have to also act proactively with the hope that those that need to assist us on the other side will also be on their game and be able to help us meet that deadline long before time, so that there's no instability. As I said, especially at a time when these community radio stations would be playing an important role going to the elections, which is in line with how you want to celebrate even the 30 years of democracy in 2024. With that having been said, honorable members, would, as requested by MDDA and the Deputy Minister, would allow them to also continue on the other program of the handover, which they are busy with, as we take GCIS, and nothing has changed in terms of allocation of time. We are now handing over to you to do your 30 minutes presentation, ADG, Michael. Honorable Machos, I take it to be a legacy hand, not that you are calling a point of order. For that, please lower the hand. Please proceed, ADG and the team.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, the Honorable Maneli, the Honorable Deputy Minister Motaung in the Presidency, Honorable members of this committee, and my colleagues at the MDDA who've done very well, and I have to emulate them in their speed. Honorable Chair, Professor Matibula and Ms. Peter and the CFO. Good morning to you from GCIS. My name is Michael Curran. I'm the Acting Director General, and I'm here with members of the EXCO, the 3 DDGs, Rejo Mavimbela, Nomonde Mnukwa, and Tasneem Karim, who's acting in Branch 3, where I am acting here. We're also joined by our CFO, Ms. Sotli, and Mr. Nene, who deals with our oversight. So good morning to you one and all, and of course, good morning to any citizens, stakeholders, South Africans who are watching out there on the YouTube channel, and obviously to colleagues in Parliament and our dear Secretary Hajira. With permission, Chair, I'll switch the video off because we haven't finished the upgrade of our line yet, and sometimes it's a bit dicky. Honourable Chair, it's a very great honour and privilege for us to appear before yourselves, our oversight body, where we account again. Very sincere thanks to Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, who's provided good counsel to us in the revision of our SP and APP and deputy ministers. We always enjoy or really appreciate the guidance of our portfolio committee. I did also want to say, as I had prepared in my notes, to say thank you very much for your interaction. I'm sorry I couldn't be with yourselves on the day you visited. We were in Parliament, as you know, we were in Cabinet. The role of the DG is twofold, here today on APP, etc. And then I was at Cabinet, but thank you very much. The colleagues were quite excited to see you, and it seems they enjoyed the interaction. Then to today's performance or presentation, we just want to indicate to you that we're presenting our plans for the year ahead. Our APP, we have made some innovations based on a certain posture we are in at the time in our country. We have a very significantly changed communication environment since the onset of this administration, when all of yourselves took offices, and the president and ministers, in delivering strategic leadership and the coordination of the system and giving information to our citizens. We've had to be very mindful of a very contested, a very difficult and different communication environment that we operate in as government communicators. All over the world, there is an increase, Honourable Chair, in the trust deficit between governments and their citizens, largely because of contestations, anti-establishment groups, the spreading of fake news on social media. So everything's up for contestation. And what we're aspiring to in this APP, Honourable Chair, is to ensure that we, in that contested space, are sharpening and refining our offering. Yes, keeping some of the tried and tested platforms that we have, but at the same time, innovating ideas and platforms and opportunities that meet the current needs. Now, what does that mean in practice? It means that we want to be, even if there's a disagreement on the policy, or you might not like the story we have to tell because it's a different policy choice, there must be that appreciation that when you get to the GCIS, You're getting authentic, legitimate, clear information that assists you as the public or a stakeholder in getting the clarity you need to make decisions, getting proper exposure to the opportunities and programs of governments, and above all, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, are getting information that is able to make you improve your lives. I feel confident in that because if you see the recent investment conference, as much as we're going through an economic tough time, and I'll comment on that in a minute, we've seen a lot of investments taking off. And those investments have stories of people, they have young engineers entering the workplace, they have value chains that are being developed, etc. So we do need to build that sense of who we are as a nation and what we are about. As early as August last year, we began the review and introspection as to what we can do in a very contested space, what we can do in terms of dealing with misleading information, what we can do in terms of very dwindling budgets, and my colleague Nomonde will touch on that. And we had a lot of session with our staff, we had a lot of session with our management, we had a very good input from our former minister, and once Minister Chavendi and the other two deputy ministers, Deputy Minister Morolong and Deputy Minister Motaung, assumed office there. And we're very grateful, Honourable Chair and members, for giving us a bit more time to table. We had a lot of guidance on how we can improve our system. And if I had to share with you briefly, because I'm going to try and be in the 10 minutes that I want to do, we really have been on an exercise of improving the measurability, the ability to understand our indicators and our outputs, and not have a situation where some of our outputs or some of our outcomes are more like outputs and you can't really measure and quantify and qualify, something that this portfolio committee counseled us on last year. So in that refining process, we now have 4 outcomes for this year, 41 indicators, which is an increase from 35. And that is because we now putting the operational and activity parts to where they belong and having outcomes that are much more quantifiable, much more measurable. And the most important thing for us, Honourable Chair, is that these have a much more defined and clear statement of outcome. And that statement of outcome, I'm not going to deal with the bar chart, it tells you the same information. That basically what I can say is a more smarter set of objectives are very much at the place of empowering South Africans through communication excellence. And why do I say that? It's because we're in that place now where authentic, realistic, proper information that can help improve the lives of South Africans is very, very critical in a contested space. And our view is that that information is empowering. And it's for that reason that we have initiated and recommended a change in our strategic vision statement for the period ahead of us. Just briefly, what's driving us, what's keeping us alive and awake is that anything we do must encourage and involve citizens, including right down to the community level, and Tasneem will touch on that a bit. We really, as I said, want to illustrate some of the programs that are there, that are working, and deal with some of the challenges. The capability of the state and the ability to deliver services must be paramount. Obviously, and as we run in, as the honourable members have pointed into an election period, there's a lot of contestation, but we want to reinforce the message that we are better together as a nation, and that in these tough times, social solidarity, the work of social formations, and the lessons we learned from COVID about that were absolutely fundamental in ensuring that we stand as a society united and building ourselves against the challenges we've had. And amongst those challenges, obviously, is the issue of fighting corruption and crime, because they really are problems. At the root of all of this is that GCIS is an organization. We have our staff, we have provincial officers, we have district officers, but in actual fact, we are a system of communicators. And one of the efforts we want to drive this year is to ensure that the system itself proves to be more efficient in its outputs. So lessons of COVID, for example, Honourable Chair, were very, very tailored around things like the use of technology, the use of community radio, as all of the honorable members were saying before. When you couldn't get down to villages with pamphleteering or community meetings, those community radio stations with young experts, young doctors on air explaining vaccination was an absolutely powerful thing. And then obviously the content was very clear to us, honorable members. There's a lot of issues out there. We're very, very strong on our first generation rights, human rights, the cultures of participation, freedom of expression. And we know, as the president outlined in SONA and as encapsulated as Deputy Minister Motaung said in the National Communication Strategic Framework, economic reconstruction and development and everything that goes with that, fighting corruption and the criminal activity there, the whole issue of a social net and the social services that are there for our society, the critical issue of gender-based violence, and that this portfolio committee has spoken to often, and then above all, the public service professionalization, including us as communicators, sustaining the fight against COVID, and then the social compact between us as a nation. These are the content narratives that we think are the areas of freedom as we move towards a build-up program for 30 years of freedom next year. We will be drilling on. So strong communication focus on these areas, and Rachel will elaborate on that. So, honorable members, I'm not going to take a lot of time here. Oh, by the way, one thing, Honorable Maneli, I did want to share in terms of freedom. And Tasneem will touch a bit on that when she speaks about media, our partnership with the media. Very proud yesterday, honorable members, that as we talk about freedom and the character of our relationship in a contested space, South Africa moved up 10 notches in the Reporters Without Borders Index yesterday, released yesterday, which documents the way this international body characterizes the relationship between government and the media sector. So as much as we have our disputes, as much as we've had challenges with the media, or differences of agreement in content and style, we still enjoy a very, very good and robust free media, which has now been affirmed as recently as yesterday. And it's very solid in terms of the way forward. I'm not going to go in detail here. Colleagues will tease out. We have an outcome of informed and empowered citizens. You've obviously had a chance to read. The second one is a well-functioning system, as I mentioned, more rigor and more compliance, as opposed to everybody doing their own thing, which has been a problem you've raised before. Transformation of the industry, and we've made great strides last year in the introduction of the MAC Charter processes. And then finally, to improve the governance and service excellence. We heard another honorable member mentioning about corporate governance and keeping that above, up to the standard that we've had. So in moving forward, I'm not going to take any more time. I'll conclude, but I'm going to ask then very, very briefly, you've obviously had a chance to read the 3 Deputy Directors General, just to give 1 or 2 of those indicators where we've refined. Mindful of the fact that we have 15 minutes left, just to give honorable members a taste of some of the areas where our introspection has yielded us to improve our ability. So I'm going to start with my colleague, Ms. Nomonde Mnukwa, who will kick off, but at the same time, she will speak to our financial system. Nomonde? Sis Nomonde?
Thank you, Acting DG. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. The protocol is observed. I think basically, maybe just to start a little bit, Michael has reflected that we have had to review our strategic plan as a department, mainly because my view is not that great. I think there's a lot of, but Chairperson, can I request to be offline from the video so that I can also save the bandwidth, but also I noticed that my view is not that great, if you allow me, Chairperson. Basically, we had to, okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. We had to review our strategic plan because the majority of our output indicators were not enabling us to make an impact. I'm just gonna share just few of them just to give an understanding to the members in terms of how our output indicators were. For an example, we had a situation whereby one of the output indicators from branch 1, which is also, I'm gonna be enabling me to talk to what Michael requested that I talk to. It was saying number of governance reports on the availability of IT infrastructure and systems presented to the audit committee. So when we did our review, we realized that we can achieve this target because it's just talking about the submission of the reports. However, we want to make an impact, and in impact, it then says, is our organization really geared up to deliver effective and efficient IT services? And therefore, the current output indicator, which is why we reviewed the strategy, now talks to a digitized GCIS. So we now know that we can make an impact because at the end of the day, we want to see a digitized GCIS instead of just submitting the reports. We also talk about on the same, the availability of our IT infrastructure. So we talk about 95% availability on time, so that we limit times whereby we don't have IT infrastructure available because it disrupts the operations. So in a nutshell, in all our output indicators, we had to review them that way just to look at whether they enable us to make an impact. If not, then we had to look at how do we then put them to make an impact. So I'm just saying in terms of the output indicators from branch 1, we're now looking at digitized GCIS instead of just the reports. Also, we look at a capable leadership within the organization that will be able to strategically lead the organization, because we lead and coordinate the whole government communication system. Therefore, it then means our leadership capabilities in the institution and also impacting on the external government departments and also the other spheres of government should be part to be able for us to lead. Hence, we now have, instead of just measuring the vacancy rate, which we have moved to the operational plan, at a strategic level, we want to see an empowered management in the organization from the middle management upwards. So we're looking at ensuring that. I'm not gonna go much in terms of the other areas whereby we've made, we've reviewed and we have ensured that they enable us to make an impact. But I will run quickly, Michael, if you agree, with the budget so that when the other colleagues come in, I'm already off the platform totally. Our budget, honorable members, for the 2023-2024 financial year is 750.7 million for the whole GCIS and its entities. And from that 750.7 million, about 34% of it gets to be transferred to our entities, which is the MDDA and Brand SA. And Brand SA get to receive 29% of the 256.6 million, which is 219.5 million. And then MDDA get to have a slice of 5% from the 256 million, which is 37 million. And then Program 1 gets to receive about 26.5% of the total GCIS budget, which also includes the 26% is calculated, including the monies that we transfer to the entities. And the reason why Program 1 has got such high allocation is because we have centralized funds for office accommodation, security, cleaning, municipal services, and training for the whole department. So, which is why it seems as if Program 1 has got a little bit of slice, because it also allocates the budget for provision of support services to the entire department. Then Program 2
as much as it seems to be having about 400 million, but from that, we exclude the transfers because the transfers are allocated under program 2. So the real allocation for program 2 becomes 23.6%, which is 177.4 million. And then program 3, which also includes our provinces and districts, gets to be allocated 16%, which is about 123 million. And for 2024-2025, I will just summarize, given the fact that we are only tabling for 2023-2024. Our total budget allocation is 782.8 million, and 34% gets to be allocated to the entities, and the same 29% goes to Brand SA, 5% of it goes to MDDA, and program 1 gets to receive a slice of 26.5%, which includes those corporate support services that I've mentioned before. And then program 3 gets to receive 16%, and program 2 gets to receive 23%. And just quickly going to the expenditure trends of the department in the previous financial years, in terms of the monies that we have been allocated as a department. The audited outcomes, I will just summarize just the totals. 2019-2020, our total budget was 675 million, which in the following year, which was 2020-2021, it was an increase to 712 million. Then in 2021-2022, it then increased again to 755 million. However, in the financial year that ended in March, our budget was cut from 755 million to 719 million. So even the budget that we are given this financial year, which is 750 million, it is still below the budget that we were allocated in 2021-2022, which was 755 million. So basically members can then see from that if our current budget is still below the budget that we allocated in the 2 previous financial years, with the inflation and rising costs and so forth, it becomes very challenging for us as a department to provide effective services, given the fact that we also a very high unequal country, and we therefore still need to use the traditional methods of communicating to the people, particularly the people that we normally term the rooted realist in terms of our segmentation model, which they make up more than 28 million of the total population of our country. We still need to reach that 28 million of our nation through face-to-face engagements and through izimbizos and so forth. And if you then calculate the money that we get to remain with as a department, which after you take out the transfers to the entities, is more around 494 million for this financial year. And you look at the population that we have to serve, then the per capita cost becomes 8 rand 2 cents, which is so little to make an impact and communicate accordingly to the nation, particularly with the challenges that we face as a country, whereby communication becomes key, so that the people, they have the correct information, but also they are informed of the opportunities that are available, so that they also are aware of the programs of government and how they can benefit them, and also have hope in terms of how the government is working towards ensuring that everything that is a challenge or is perceived to be a challenge is resolved. Then the last slide, which is slide number 27, talks about our just analysis in terms of our budget allocation per economic classification. So basically our 750.7 million, which we are not taking out the entities, 38% goes to the compensation of employees. You'd realize, as I've said, that we still used conventional methods, because besides our communities being not really on digital platforms, the rooted realist, which is more about 28 million. Also, the cost of the data costs are very high. So people can't be on data for a long time because the costs are very high. Our goods and services, we have allocated 27%. And then the transfers for the entities, I've already said it's 34%, and we've allocated 1% for our capital assets. Chairperson, I think it would not be proper for us as a department not to mention that the presentation that we made to National Treasury last year, they were able to allocate us a little bit of money for communication, which was about 20 million for our campaigns and 7 million for our IT infrastructure. But also compared to last year, they had compared to the previous year, they had also allocated the cost of living salary adjustments for the employees, because in the previous financial year, that was 2021-2022, we had to fund them from our own coffers for the senior managers. They were not funded. So we appreciate the work that National Treasury has done to do that consideration. However, the situation, it doesn't mean it has changed. And as such, the need to communicate has even increased, particularly given also the economic climate that we find ourselves in as a country. Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members.
Thank you very much, colleague. And then just to catch up a bit of time, let's go straight to Recho, who will tell us just 2 or 3 of those innovations from branch 2, which deals with content processing and dissemination. Recho?
Thank you, Acting DG. All protocol observed. Just quickly to tease out the key indicators that are affecting my program, which is program 2. We have spoken about Vuk'uzenzele being a print publication, but we have heard the cries of the portfolio committee and also our citizens in the way they consume media. Now we are expanding our digital footprint, and we are adding 22 online editions of Vuk'uzenzele, and at the same time, which may not find expression in this APP, we are busy exploring other platforms of distributing via WhatsApp and the like. A new indicator is a government service delivery TV channel. We have been using a platform of YouTube for streaming live programs of government and broadcasting those, sharing those links with broadcasters, SABC or ETVs and other broadcasters outside of the country. And we see that as a very useful tool to expand it and make it more dominant and beef it up with more content and more hours. An additional indicator that has been added is a number of pages on our website.
I'm sure it says you know.
Yes, so we are adding them to increase our digital footprint once again. They will increase the number of updates that we provide to our websites, and in that way we will increase the number of page views to 50 million page views per annum on our main website, which is .gov.za. And the increase will also come from links to other departments where we update a story on .gov.za. Maybe it's on Department of Transport, then we provide a link so that citizens are able to have that dual view. And on the next page, on social media, we are looking at areas of increasing engagement to ensure that we can respond to citizens as they engage on our social media platform, asking questions. We lead them to the right departments, we provide answers, and that actually shows a responsive government and also an increase in our social media platforms. Thank you, Michael. I think I've covered the key ones.
Thank you. Last but not least, Sister's name, what do you plan to share with the honourable members about the outreach, intergovernmental coordination and stakeholder team in the year ahead, please?
Good morning, honourable members. All protocol observed. I will also try to be very quick. I think in an unequal society such as ours, what worries us all is how do we make sure that we involve the majority of the population in accessing government communication in order to improve their lives. And for that, we've also trying to increase the engagements between government officials and journalists who are our core mediators between information from government and the population. And also to increase our media briefings from various departments, especially in the non-cabinet week. So in the cabinet week, there's the post-cabinet statement, which announces what cabinet has decided on. But we've identified that the non-cabinet week is a week in which we can use to talk about government programs and progress against those. These all need to be related to the delivery of the medium-term strategic framework, and within that specifically the apex priority projects that are part of the national annual strategic program. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. As has been discussed already this morning, stakeholder engagement and in particular stakeholders in our communities has been of immeasurable value, especially when we were dealing with the COVID pandemic. And we are trying to see how we can scale up on these stakeholder engagements. So there's a number of communication projects held at the local district level, municipal, provincial, and at the national level, linked to the core projects identified within the MTSF and the SONA priorities. And also the same projects are listed in the National Communication Strategic Framework that Michael spoke about at the opening of this presentation. In addition, we are looking at how we can strengthen the system as a whole, the government communication system. And one of the things that we do is we have 2 engagements a year with heads of communication across the board, national, provincial, and local, as well as internal communications forums, which help to spread the communication around government's key projects, progress, challenges, and policy approaches. The cluster communication engagements also refer to what we are doing to strengthen the system from within, making sure that those in the economic cluster, for example, pull together their messaging, pull together their resources, and are able to effectively communicate what is happening in that particular cluster. The same applies to the JCPS, the GCIS, and other clusters. Also, the 25 communication training opportunities, those are training opportunities that we offer across the board, also to national, provincial, and local. One of the things that we have found is that at the local level, councillors, as we had picked up a few years ago, councillors require training in terms of how they communicate with their communities, using community radio stations, using community newspapers, and just keeping communities up to date with progress in their specific wards. And also just keeping communities up to date with what council decisions are. So those training opportunities happen across the board, across the country. Thank you. And then on this slide, there are a number of development communication projects. A lot of this is outreach to communities and via Imbizo, sometimes a town hall meeting, and sometimes, and many other methods of engagement, sometimes a webinar, sometimes a live show on community radio. and they are related to progress in terms of government communication projects aligned to the NCSF. The NCSF stands for National Communication Strategic Framework, and they relate to the core priority areas of government. In addition to that, as I've spoken before, we are ramping up stakeholder liaison. And so we are saying not less than 1,250 community and stakeholder liaison visits. And those happen, honorable members, at community level, at ward level, and they're linked to also the councillors who are working with communities and communicating in communities. And then also just we are trying to strengthen the system from within, and so the functioning of the government communications system. There are 4 reports that we deliver in a year, and that speaks to how strong the structures are at the district level, at the ward level, so in terms of working with the provincial colleagues and with the colleagues in the municipalities in communicating to communities. I think that is my last input. If there's any questions, then I think we'll be prepared to.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. So honorable members, for those of you who mentioned about local government and the importance of it, that's where that feels. So in conclusion, honorable chair, and we are sorry to be a bit longer, that ours is a very sharper, we hope, honorable chair, a much more intentional, a much more measurable and specific set of engagements that really give citizens information, that give them that daily clarity, that help them make decisions, and that reflect some of the opportunities in government. Thank you very much, honorable chair and honorable members.
Thank you, ADG and your team from GCIS. We now go to members who would want to engage with the presentation. So I now want to recognize those who would want to speak. I note Honorable Machozi. Any other member? We have Honorable Machozi. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson, and also thank you to GCIS for the presentation. No, it's not much, Chairperson. I just wanted to check. When they were presenting, they spoke about the distribution of Vukuzenzele newspaper to 10.2 million. Where do they distribute these newspapers? Are they getting them into the local municipalities, or what happens? Because I've never seen the newspaper before, and I would really want to know who has access to this Vukuzenzele newspaper, and also to applaud them that they've always kept their house in order, and also in terms of the budgets, they are forever within the budgets, and also with salaries, they are within the threshold. But I just wanted to check in terms of the Vukuzenzele newspaper, where do they distribute it? Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Machozi, any other member before I give to the department to respond? In the absence of any other member, maybe as you respond, just a few points to be clarified so that I know in summary how we'll approach the presentation received. One relates to what we've raised with MDDA, time for the elections. What I couldn't pick up well there is, as a government communication and information system, how do you factor in, especially with the increased distribution, trying to put up new pages, the part about civic education, especially with 2024 being a different election. So how you encourage citizens to participate in their own democracy. And I'm raising that cautiously without making you to be the mouthpiece of party, but government remains government, and it's the government of the people, which must communicate out there, educate also its citizens to participate. That's one. The second issue relates again to the funding, which the MDDA said you are the ones who can respond to this part. Yeah, the budget is low, as you would have said, but also that from the way of allocation, and this is again in relation to creating these platforms we talked about. A lot of that money goes to brand SA as compared to the community radio stations and print media at a community level. Whether you are considering a collaboration with other state entities, be it tourism authority, be it National Development Agency, especially in those areas where it's about selling the country to attract investment, so that instead of everyone doing that as a duplication, but you can save those funds and be able to redirect them to where also they are needed most, which is at that community broadcasting level. So as you respond, if you can also speak to that. Over to you, ATG.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Majozi. I'm going to ask Sis Rekho just to quickly tell us about VUC. She definitely has clear details, Honorable Majozi. Rekho?
Thank you, Acting DG and Honorable Chair and members. With regards to the question on Vuk'uzenzele, the 10.2 million copies, it's split per quarter. So we do about 850,000 per month. The main focus is the rooted realists, the market that is at the bottom of the pie, the poorest of the poor. They are mostly in rural, deep rural areas. And because of access to places of economic means, we actually deliver to households. So the delivery model that we have is to households. And we have, at the moment, we're not even able to reach the 27.8 million of the rooted realists because we're only printing 850,000. However, the 850,000 is not all distributed to the rooted realists, even though over 80% goes to that market. The rest goes to the Tucson centers through our provincial liaison offices. When they have activations, we ensure that they distribute VUC at the Tucson centers. And activations are picked to target the city slickers market, which is more urban, peri-urban, and we would do activations as per need at taxi ranks, at places where there is high concentration of people. So that is our distribution model. But I just want to praise the committee that we are really looking this distribution model so that it is more effective, it reaches more people, and we don't get the reports of more and more citizens complaining that they don't see as much Vuk'uzenzele as they're supposed to be seeing. And I think I also mentioned also in the APP that we captured that we will start increasing the footprint of our digital magazine. And with regards to the civic education, we're working with IEC so that we ensure that we go to, as we do this key education campaign, we also know the parameters. At the moment, we do not have the budget to carry this campaign. We're doing it through our PLL practitioners and using a project management model to make sure that our citizens are informed. Then it will take a form of activations, it will take a form of workshops and community radio talk shows and advertising. So that is as far as I can expand on the budget of entities. I think our 18 DG can also elaborate on that, but the allocation comes straight from National Treasury, and it is actually allocated per programs. So the entities will outline what their programs are, and they are budgeted for. A request is made through to National Treasury, and it is actually it goes through GCIS. So as it is allocated through National Treasury, GCIS is just a vehicle by which the budget will be allocated to the entities. So Brand South Africa, the reason why their budget is more than MDDA is they actually advocate that the international marketing is expensive, given that in most markets they would fund the campaigns using a different currency, a dollar or a pound or a euro, which actually depletes their budget quicker. And whereas the case would be different from MDDA. We do understand and appreciate that the importance of community media and the purpose that they serve in the market, and we will engage the entities that perhaps in their request for budget that they appreciate and take that into consideration in future. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I'll just make two quick top-ups. I think number one, Honourable Majosi, over and above, I just want to also inform yourself and the members, please remember our Information Resource Centre at the Imbizo Centre in Cape Town in the Parliament Precinct. Sis Nandipa is there, and we also send Vuk there. And Honourable Majosi, maybe it would be important if you've picked up spots in your constituency where you have seen some deficits, please feel free. That's what Assistant Nandipa and the team are there to interact with honourable members here. If you think that there are blind spots in our distribution footprint, we would gladly take that up. And I commend the team to honourable members there in the IRC. Honourable Chair, yes, please, just to add on, it's very, very much on our radar. And we will work, as we always do, with a intergovernmental, interdepartmental communication working team on the preparation for the elections, covering a whole range of issues, the policing issues, issues of ID collection. But this year, because we've seen in the previous elections a bit of decline in voter attendance, etc., a healthy democracy rests on public participation, who people vote for, and that is not in the purvey of our work. But why we vote, the importance of voting, we really are having some thoughts, like we did with COVID, the vaccination. I mean, with vaccination, Honourable Chair, we created a campaign with young doctors, young influencers on social media who are saying to their peers, but guys, you know, we used to vaccinate as kids for measles, and why don't you want to vaccinate now? And we got a lot of response from young people. So we're thinking around those same ideas, Honourable Chair. And then those platforms that Tasneem spoke about, the 1250 through our provinces. For example, one of them will certainly, or many of them will certainly be like a talk show with local leaderships, a horsey, maybe someone from a youth organization or a faith organization, about why active participation in a democracy is important. What we often do is we have very good relationships with community radio stations as a GCIS in districts, and we will make a project together. So our district office will sit with the community radio station and develop maybe 1 or 2 shows. We will buy some space, then sometimes they will include us in their current affairs. So we do take that counsel. I will ensure that the team of both Recho, who leads our project teams, pick it up. And then on the matter of the money, look, as Recho said, Honorable Chair, it is kind of laid down to us from our current treasury system and how they have calculated that. But I can say to the honorable members, we obviously do mid-year assessments. We've heard the call by all the members of parliament here that you are saying to us that we're worried about sustainability. Obviously, the sustainability of community media per se isn't within our function. We try our best to ensure that we do media buying there. But what we will do, Honorable Chair and honorable members, is we will have a conversation with our entity team. We'll have a look at what we do here. And as we re-engage Treasury in the months ahead for our allocation, we'll see what we can do. I think the idea that you flagged about engaging with other entities and seeing where we can share costs on the international area is definitely a good idea, and we'll take that forward, Honorable Chair. So unless there's anything else, those are the responses from us. Thank you, the Honorable Chair, honorable members.
Thank you, ATG. Honorable members, if there's no further questions, committee support, I don't see any other hand.
I didn't raise my hand, Chair, but I wanted to say thank you to the DG. I think I have seen the newspaper myself, but maybe in the townships, it's where it lacks. But as he says that we must liaise with the office in Cape Town to then say, because young people, mostly, they don't go to these Tusong Center unless it's for home affairs or any other thing that they will need in the Tusong Center or NYDA and so forth. So unless there's that need for them to go to Tusong Center, that is when they will see. But it is very important that maybe they would get this information. I would have seen GCIS doing that with vaccines, getting SMSs. Everyone was getting SMSs, and that is why many people were able to go and vaccine. So with these newspapers as well, because there is information that is important that they should receive in the townships and rural areas, I think then I will liaise with them. Maybe if they drop also information that where we should liaise, and then say of these areas that we want them to cover. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Majosi. Honorable members, I think the points have been made, responses also made. I take it that the honorable members agree that there's an APP that has been put before us, clear targets. Ours is to really monitor the implementation as to where we can. And in some instances, of course, we may need feedback on those areas of improvement on engagements, especially those that are with national treasury as it relates to budgets, and continue to support that communication should also be taken as a priority of government, because in some instances things would happen that you have not budgeted for, and there's a reasonable expectation that government must communicate. And once you talk budgets all the time, it may send a message that the government is absent at a time when it is critical to communicate to the citizens of the country. With that having been said, honorable members, this then takes us to the last item, which is closing the meeting. Honorable Bolani.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Person, just housekeeping and point of clarity. The next meeting next Tuesday, is it in person or on virtual platform? Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Bolani. I take it that would be formally communicated, but from the initial response we had, there were no venues available for us. But committee support, any update on that matter? I think it's important from a planning point of view.
Yes, Chair, it's virtual, Chair.
Okay, so that's responded to, Honorable Bolan.
Thank you so much.
With that having been said, the meeting stays adjourned until we meet again, honorable members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.